Well, good morning and welcome to the Liferay France Symposium 2015. It's always a pleasure for me to come join members of the community, our partners, our customers here in Paris, and I'm just excited, as excited this year as ever. I've heard about some of the great case studies that we have lined up, and from Liferay's side, we have so many new developments on the technology side that I'm very happy and excited to share with you. This morning I wanted to talk about digital, and this seems to be a word that is being used in so many different places these days. I've even noticed that people who add me on LinkedIn now have the word digital in their job titles. They might be the director of digital technologies or the chief digital strategist. And so this seems to be a concept and idea that has really taken hold of the business world. And I wanted to consider what the word really is trying to communicate, and then from there perhaps learn about how digital should be embraced and used as a concept to drive change in our business. So just to start, does anyone have any idea what this image might be? Okay, I think I heard the word disk, and that would be correct. So it's a very large magnification of a record that has been carved out with the amplitude and the frequency of a recording of music. And for those of you who know how records work, you know that it's basically a representation of the sound wave from the music recording placed into plastic, and then when the stylus plays within the record, it's following that wave pattern. One thing I learned about this is that to get the stereo signal, there's actually a difference in amplitude on one side of the groove and on the other. And I wanted to start with this just to show that when we talk about digital, it's in contrast with the analog world. And I think the main characteristic of analog is that it most closely represents reality. This sound wave is a continuous, infinite entity, and the record or the recording of that sound wave is also infinite. Now, what does digital look like by contrast? This is a magnification of a CD, and you can see that the binary data from an analog recording that's been transcoded into digital appears like a series of ones and zeros. And how we get there is, you're probably aware, you sample the analog waveform as many times as you can. And even though you do it, let's say, 44,000 times per second, underneath or underlying that recording, there is still that digital or binary nature of the waveform. Now, if we were to try to continue to increase the sampling rate so that we approach infinity, so that we could most closely represent reality, which is the analog signal, then we would spend a very long time doing that. However, once we realize and once we allow ourselves to escape that limitation of the analog signal, new possibilities are born. The wave format samples the analog wave at about 44,100 times a second. And this allows basically for the sound that is perceived by the human ear to seem as if it's the same as an analog signal. And this is because the highest frequency that a human being can actually experience is 20,000. And so I guess there's a physics law that says that you need twice of that in order to not be able to perceive the difference. And once recording and sound engineers were able to take hold of this reality, they opened up all kinds of new possibilities. Most of you are probably carrying a smartphone in your pocket right now, and you've probably got a good 400, 500 songs on there. And while having a digital song on your phone and listening to it through headphones is not quite the same as going to the symphony, nor is it the same as listening in your living room with a very nice set of speakers. You're able to call up any song you want while you're on the metro or on the bus or in your car driving to and from work. And so rather than trying to replicate the experiences we know, we're able to create new experiences and new possibilities with digital technology. This is the main theme that I wanted to hit on with these examples. And I think a lot of us as business people, when we embark on a digital journey, we get caught up in trying to replicate or somehow enhance only the analog or the real world with our digital technology. Everyone knows the sort of visceral appeal of a Polaroid photograph. And I actually took one with Frank yesterday because they have a Polaroid camera. And I think it's not so much just the image that comes out, but it's also that whole experience of having the photo come out and waiting for it and seeing it develop. And yet even the aesthetics of the photo itself is something that we really admire and appreciate. And so there are even apps out there that will take your digital photo and try to make it look analog. And I would argue that as good of a representation this is, it still doesn't have quite the appeal of the real thing, although maybe in this case it has more to do with the subject matter. In any case, once we step away from this, trying to mimic the analog world, trying to mimic reality, I think it really opens up new possibilities. This is a series of photos taken from a helicopter by a French-American photographer. His name is Vincent Liferay. He has been doing a series that he calls Air, where he goes around the world. You'll see shots of London, New York, I believe Los Angeles and Las Vegas in here. And he tells this story of how, of the moment when he realized that digital photography technology had surpassed the human eye. And he was looking out into the darkness, and what he saw as pitch black, the camera was actually able to make out a tree with cherries in it. And he said that he realized that this was a new age of photography. And I think in the same way, when we apply the concept of digital technology or digital transformation to our businesses, we need to think this way. We need to think of the new possibilities that are made, that are open to us once we allow those technologies to enhance or create new possibilities in the analog world. So to get into this point a little bit further, I wanted to present a case study, and this is interesting for a number of reasons, which I'll relate in the end, but it might not be the most likeliest of candidates. So the 7-Eleven company in Japan has been doing a number of things that I believe illustrate some great lessons for us to learn. If you look at a map of the city of Tokyo, and then you do a Google search for 7-Eleven, it's quite phenomenal. Zooming out to the rest of the country, you can just see how pervasive this chain is. And 7-Eleven actually owns or has control of about 35% of the market for convenience stores in the nation of Japan. And as I was pondering this, I thought, well, what might be the most ubiquitous thing other than convenience stores that you can compare it with? And so this is, again, that map of 7-Eleven, and this is the map of the post offices. So not only are 7-Elevens physically more present in the city of Tokyo than the post offices, they're also open 24 hours. And I read an article about this, which was actually written in the year 2000, I believe. And they were likening the presence of convenience stores in the city of Tokyo to the human neural system, and basically saying that these convenience stores are like the synapses, and they're able to interact with the organism of the city. Each human interaction where they come into a store and they undergo a transaction tells the 7-Eleven Corporation a little bit about how the city of Tokyo is doing, what they want, what they're interested in purchasing. Another way you could think of it is that this is like the ends of the fiber optic cable, and that connection, that meeting between humans and the stores is the occasion for an interaction that leads to information and data that helps the corporation understand what their customers want. As early as 1994, 7-Eleven Japan had 1.8 billion customers, and as early as 1994, they were collecting information and data about the needs and preferences of those customers. These clerks would actually physically key in every time they took someone at the register, the gender, an approximate age group, and what the person purchased. And using this information, they were able to develop this system where they had near instantaneous feedback on what the people in each neighborhood in the city of Tokyo needed. And so within 2 hours, that data would go back to their mainframes. They would process this information, and it would go back to the stores. Stores would also keep inventory on little portable computers before we even had tablets. One example that they give is that out of the 4,000 or so soft drinks that are produced in Japan, they would be able to analyze and only stock the most important 70 to 80 drinks in the entire country that were most popular with the widest number of people. So I think the first point that this case study illustrates for us is that digital business opportunities lie at this intersection of people and data, or the physical and the virtual world. There's something that happens when your customers interact with your company that tells you something that you need to capture and that you need to understand. Another interesting thing about 7-Eleven is that they're actually not in the convenience store business exclusively. One thing that's kind of unexpected is that you can actually take delivery of packages at your local 7-Eleven. And that's not all. You can also get cash and do banking transactions. You can pay for your bills, like your TV and your electricity bill. You can print out photos from your digital camera and buy tickets to concerts and other events. And one thing that 7-Eleven realized is that their greatest asset was not just to sell things to people, but was actually the fact that they were local and present in every neighborhood throughout the country. And so once they realized that they have this channel for interacting with customers, they were able to see new business possibilities. In 2014, they acquired a company called Nissan Holdings as one of the leading e-commerce online websites in the country of Japan. And they see an opportunity here for doing omni-channel retailing, offering customized consumer experiences for each and every customer through a combination of online, in-store, whether it's convenience store or department store interactions. And so digital business transformation is less about new technology. You see, in 7-Eleven's case, it wasn't that they were able to somehow roll out a new technology or put out a new mobile app, but they started thinking differently about what business they were in and the assets that they had and the access that they had to their customers. Finally, the last thing that was really interesting to me about 7-Eleven was that all of this thinking about how to serve their customers seemed to come from an underlying and fundamental sense of mission and purpose. In their corporate responsibility report in 2007, they said that their founding mission was to create a modern management system that ensures that customers can buy what they want when they want it, and to help small and medium retailers respond to market changes. If you look at any of the marketing of companies like Liferay or Adobe today, it sounds a lot like this. Make sure you deliver the right content to the right person at the right time. And yet, 7-Eleven, a convenience store, was doing this almost a decade ago. So, if you want to have a successful digital business transformation, you have to start with this commitment not only to exploit personal data or to somehow take advantage of this information for the gains of the company, but I think having this orientation to the customer, serving the customer, understanding the customer goes a long way. So having said that, what are some of the considerations that you should keep in mind as you go through your digital transformation? Well, first of all, I think one thing that the 7-Eleven case study shows really well is that you need what I call a digital analog interface. One of the advantages that retailers like 7-Eleven has is that they're physically present in the lives of their customers. And you might be in a B2B industry, or you might be in insurance or healthcare, and you might say, well, we don't have that same kind of presence. But one of the reasons why people have been hyping up mobile so much is this obvious application to be that digital analog interface for your customers. It used to be that your interactions with customers were confined to the desktop or to the phone, but now you can meet with them anywhere and at any time. And this is kind of something that's obvious now that we're so far into the mobile revolution. The other aspect is to figure out your platform. And my colleague and friend Eddie has a great talk about platform or be platformed. But very briefly, one of the things that 7-Eleven was able to do was to take their existing platform, which was their stores, and pivot into adjacent services. And one thing about the fact that you're able to take delivery of packages in the stores is that all of those transactions actually give them more information about their customers that they then use to further optimize their services. This Yamato Transport Company actually lists 7-Eleven and some of the other major convenience stores as places where people can pick up, take delivery of those packages. And then finally, I think this is a topic that probably we haven't delved as much into as an industry, but you have to find your digital ethos and commit to it. What I mean by that is that as you get more and more personal, you can border on being obtrusive. I think when you're in a restaurant, you've probably experienced service that was over the top, where they're refilling your water too often, or they're coming by too often to ask how they're doing. And you've probably experienced service where they anticipate your needs and they're there when you need them, but they quietly disappear when you don't need them. And I think in the same way, as we explore this area of digital business, we need to really be sensitive to the relationships and the standards and the expectations we set with our customers in just how personal and how individualized our services can get. This photo is from Disney, which is using digital technology to enhance their experiences at their parks. And this is basically a personalized band that allows you to do things like pay for meals, open your hotel room, take delivery of photos that they've taken of you in the park, and so forth. And it knows who you are, and it very likely could be used to, kind of ask you personal questions about biographical aspects of your life that may make you feel uncomfortable. And so I think Disney is going to wrestle with this question of how personal is too personal. Okay, so Milen is telling me I've only got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to skip over this. And I'm going to briefly cover Liferay's digital roadmap. So Liferay's been in the industry now for over 10 years. Many of you have been on that journey with us. And we started out as a portal, and that is still what we are most known for. But in the meantime, I believe we've become much more than just a portal server. If you look at the developments in the Liferay ecosystem over the last year and a half, you'll see that how many of them are actually not related to the base portal product at all. One example would be the mobile technologies that we've developed. So we started with a mobile SDK to make it much easier for people developing apps against Liferay to do so. We added this year Liferay screens, which are pre-built interfaces for mobile apps to access backend data and business logic in the Liferay portal. We've also got a new push notification framework called Liferay Push. We've been developing a set of services that are delivered on the cloud called Liferay Connected Services. And although right now the main thing that it does is it helps you manage your production software, we're thinking about ways to add other enhancements, analytics, metrics on your websites, helping you figure out whether your Liferay digital marketing initiatives are actually meeting the goals of click-through and calls to action that you've designed for it. Some team members down in Brazil have been working on a thing that we're calling Launchpad. And this is completely separate from our portal technology, but it's basically taking a fresh look at application development and saying, how can we start with, without even having an app server, but just having a container that lets you scale individual services and apps much more easily and quickly than you can with a traditional middleware stack. Of course, we've had Liferay Sync for a long time, which is a file sharing and syncing service. This has just released a 3.0 beta. And finally, we're even thinking beyond just product development to questions about user experience and the consistency of interfaces across all of these different interactions. Because when you start having a digital business strategy, you never know when and where you're going to have to interact with that customer. So it might be on a mobile app, it might be on a website, but it might even be on an interface, on a kiosk in your store that has nothing to do with portal technology. And so we're exploring ways to ensure that that experience is consistent no matter where you're actually interacting with Liferay. Liferay is being used to solve more complex problems than the traditional portal, which was really about just having a single point of access to documents and applications. One of our customers, Unisys, has released a product called Vantage Point. And the key selling points of Vantage Point is that this is going to help you take a pulse on your business operations in real time. Liferay has been exploring how to bring together our various technologies across content targeting, push notifications, and mobile applications to develop omni-channel marketing campaign management software. So these things are very, very much outside of just what the portal used to be doing. So when you put all these pieces together, what does Liferay look like today? You have at the core all of the things that we've included in the package to create content, everything from web content and documents to business content like forms. We've got things like social content, blogs, and wikis, and so forth. And this is all what we've been very well known and loved for. But we're also taking context much more seriously. With 6.2, audience targeting was released, and this was something that our customers have told us is very exciting for them. But we're also investing a lot in things like workflow and the history of relationship. What are your users doing across all of your different touch points, all of those different interactions, and what can that history do to help you understand what they need next? Of course, we want to make it easy to create those interactions, and so we've invested not only in the core portal framework, but also in making it easier to develop mobile apps and JavaScript-based interfaces of all kinds. And then we've got a number of development tools and management tools that help bring it all together. So in 2015, the Liferay ecosystem looks fairly complex. There's a lot going on, but I believe that this is positioning us for the next wave of digital transformation initiatives, and we'd like Liferay to be a part of that. So that's where we are with the technology. The thing I want to close with is one last question, which is, what does it look like to be a human digital company? Which is very different, by the way, from being a digital human company, which is something that sounds kind of scary to me, and not something that we want to be a part of. But I think, as I gave those examples in the beginning, a lot of what we want to do with digital technology is, first of all, to approximate and appreciate aspects of the real world, the analog world, whether it's human relationships or customer interactions that have traditionally been too costly to do on a personal basis because technology was not sophisticated enough. And now we've got these digital technologies that's really making it possible for us to be much more personal and one-on-one in the way that we interact with our customers. But there are other bigger questions here, like considerations of privacy, how we deal with personal information, and I think those are the questions that we should all struggle with and wrestle with and decide how we want to do that. So one of the things that I'm up here to say is that what Liferay would like to be is to be a human digital company, to be a digital company that at its heart wants to enhance the human experience, to be personal and to respect ultimately our customers and your customers. So I'd love for you to be a part of that conversation. Please enjoy this conference, and if you do find me, please just reach out to me, and I'd be happy to discuss some of these things with you. Thank you.